Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, you called it Speed Test Saturday.
Yeah.
And instead of that, I think we got something that I would call Skin of Your Teeth Saturday. Not a lot of upsets, but we had a bunch of close games.
Sure.
More than enough reason to be plenty entertained by college football week 12, which, of course, we will talk through here over the next hour and 15 or so. Dan, how are you? Welcome back.
Good. You take your pick. Squirt through Saturday. Anything you want, the sneak by Saturday. There's plenty you can do with it when you look at some of the headlining results, I guess, other than Georgia. Not a squeaker. Georgia over Texas, not a squeaker. There were a few squeakers. There were a few not so squeaky games. I'm good. I'm charged up, Ty. We've had a full day of ridiculousness. We've had a full day of hopes being met with how exciting some of these games were. Hopes being dashed for a lot of people out there whose teams got out to potential upset sprints and then couldn't make it work in the end. There's a lot to talk about. There are a ton of implications within conferences for next week, for the postseason, for next season. You take your pick. This was a great Saturday / Friday Saturday / Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Saturday, however you want to quantify this week 12. It was terrific. We've got a lot to dive into. I'll start wherever you want to. I'm choked up thinking about it. Where are we going?
Drink some water. So look, we had 7 of the top 25 teams go down, those being Alabama, Texas, Louisville, Iowa, Pitt, USF, and Cincinnati. I counted, on my 7 fingers to make sure I got that right. I had put down here on my note sheet a disclaimer that BYU was playing a late game here. Does not look like BYU is going to lose this one. They're currently mopping up on TCU at halftime. Try as we might, Dan, there's almost no way to avoid the fact that we need to start with what went down in the SEC. We're a national show, and I know a bunch of national shows often get dunked on for talking a lot about the SEC, and we try to be balanced here, right? We're 2 guys from the North, but nevertheless, I think we have to start with what went down in the SEC. They were the most significant games of week 12, and the biggest one, I think, on the heels of what went down in week 12 is what we saw with Oklahoma and Alabama.
I agree. I tried to pitch you on leading off with Kattenhauser throwing an absolute dime for ECU, taking down Memphis.
That's right.
But I was denied the opportunity to expand on a beautiful game-winning pass and drive from the Pirates over Memphis, which has thrown the American not into disarray, but into a level of intrigue with Navy. And we'll get there.
I went through all of the scenarios, at least that I could think up.
Yeah.
And I will talk through what that looks like a little bit later on in this episode. It's going to get really interesting. Like, of all the playoff stuff that I think we're going to put ourselves through over the next 3 to 4 weeks or so, you could make a really strong case that, at least for a good chunk of our audience, the most interesting playoff chase is for that 1G6 spot. And I do believe it will be 1G6 spot now that Duke is out of the picture. But that's going to be interesting. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. In the meantime, though, I believe we both did pick Oklahoma.
We did.
I also believe that only one member of this broadcasting dynamo had the foresight, the knowledge, the gumption to pick the exact 23-21 score, Dan, and that will be yours truly.
Congratulations.
I have not picked anything right all year. Not only did we both did.
Mm-hmm. I had him outright. That's pretty good.
We both had him outright. Not only did we both pick them
yeah.
outright, but I actually had the correct score, and I am going to hang my hat on that because it has been a rough year of picking games, dog.
This was your Miguel Rojas, can't connect on anything, and then hits a big one, and it was all worth it. Okay, so, yes, Oklahoma wins this game. They win this game. I know you're going to have a lot that stood out to you, but they win this game because they were the better team in the trenches. They were the better team in big moments. They were the better team to come up with big plays when needed. And they were able to force turnovers in a way and take advantage, obviously, with the pick six. They had the best duo of brothers in this game with the Bowens. And they were a team that just never lost sight of how they are supposed to win a game like this, given their roster. And that was going to be in the trenches. That was going to be taking advantage of some, deficiencies on Alabama's offensive line, especially the right side of Alabama's offensive line at times. And that they weren't offensively going to try and play outside of themselves.
No.
And when push came to shove late in the game, they just made play after play after play on defense without their best pass rusher, without their most disruptive defensive player in our Mason Thomas. Oklahoma is now, for whatever their own deficiencies on whatever side of the ball, which is probably not talking about the defense, they're now on an Alabama winning streak.
That is correct.
Officially, yeah.
That is correct. So look, the thing we both highlighted when we did the preview for the Oklahoma-Alabama game in Week 12 was the Oklahoma pass rush. And we both had a question as to whether or not that Oklahoma pass rush would be good enough to get to Ty Simpson, to speed him up, to force some mistakes. I didn't see the final count. I don't know what the total number of pressures was. Right. I know at halftime it was 10 pressures on Ty Simpson. And they showed it at halftime what his numbers looked like under pressure. And as you might expect, like every quarterback in college football, when they're pressured, their numbers go down. Ty Simpson's numbers went down. All told, Oklahoma on defense was able to force 3 turnovers. That amounted to 17 points off of those turnovers, which ultimately I think is what swung the game.
Yes.
This is clearly, to your point, not a dynamic, high-scoring Oklahoma offense.
No.
But John Mateer is dynamic. He is very good when he has to find a way to make a play. They're just not going to blow the doors off you when they've got the ball. And also, of note, they know it.
Yeah.
They know it. There's a lot of value in this life about being self-aware. Oklahoma knows exactly what it is on offense. They know they're limited. They know they're not going to score 38 points a game. That is not who they are. They're going to lean on their defense. They're going to get as many big plays as they can from John Mateer in that offense, and that's how they want to win. And they did win this one. They did win this one. 23-21. I think they're in the driver's seat for a playoff spot now by virtue of beating Alabama. A couple teams in front. Well, we'll talk about some of the teams in front of them. But
the road that they've traveled, both
absolutely
in the SEC and in beating Michigan, their resume is just such that there's not a lot of teams that, can compare in terms of the week in, week out of their resume. But we should say something that I think is also true. Like the two things can be true at the same time. If this game were played 100 times, I'm not sure Oklahoma wins 50 of them, given what they were and were not able to accomplish on offense. Like they sneak by this game, winning the turnover margin 3-0, right? That, yes, they were the better team in the trenches, but to beat Alabama with 16 offensive points, like it doesn't take, my saying this is not meant to take anything away from Oklahoma, because you win however you can win, and it was an incredible performance from Oklahoma. They were the winners in this game. Winning is a skill. They had more of those skills today. But it's not exactly a replicable formula for beating the 2025 Alabama Crimson Tide. They were just able to get away with it today by making the bigger plays and bigger moments more often. I just wouldn't recommend teams looking at this as like a blueprint to beating Alabama. That's all.
No, I mean, they've got the defense, as I said, to put pressure on the quarterback, to speed things up, to change the game plan if you're Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. And that is essentially what Oklahoma did. There is probably a limit to that, because eventually, if they do find their way into the playoff, eventually they're going to find a team that can score on them. Eventually they're going to have to play from behind. And this is not necessarily an offense that's built to do that. But when the defense is firing, when they're able to change the game, when they're able to keep it close, and when they're able to put the ball in the hands of a dynamic quarterback like John Mateer when the game is close, they give themselves a good chance to win. They did win this one, 23-21. I don't know what it looks like out of 1,000 simulations, but this was the one that mattered.
Totally.
They're, I think, in the driver's seat now, as I said, for a playoff bid. They've got 2 home games left against Missouri and LSU. Both of those, I think, look pretty winnable. They're almost certainly now going to jump into the top 10 as a result of this win, if only because the team in front of them in Texas lost.
Yep.
If they went out there in the playoff, I feel pretty confident saying that at this point. And
I'm with you.
And on the Bama side, look, they're still in the driver's seat to get to the SEC title game, even with this loss. This was only their first conference loss. They had the loss week 1 against Florida State, but this is only their first conference loss. They've got the tiebreaker over Georgia because they won that game back at the end of September. And basically, as long as they win the Iron Bowl, they're making it through.
Right.
So there's still very much in front of Alabama. This is not a soul-crushing loss. It is loss number 2. They probably can't afford another one for a whole multitude of reasons, but they're still in a pretty good spot despite the fact that they lost this one by 2 at home.
I still think it's soul-crushing. I think you have good perspective, but I think if you're a Bama fan and you watch the way that this offense was unable to rise to the moment in that second half, once again, not growing into the game, which has been, we talked about this on the preview show, that this offense has just stalled out too much in these second halves. And a lot of that has to do with them being unable to control anything on the ground. And it's a red zone thing. It's a prolonging drive thing. It's a wearing out defense thing to give yourself easier opportunities in the second half thing. And we saw it once again that Oklahoma didn't have to dedicate much manpower to stopping Alabama on the ground because Bama themselves have been unable to figure out how to build a more complete offense. And when the Bama offense is humming through the air, it's nearly impossible to stop consistently. But when you have a defense as talented and as angry and as varied as Oklahoma's is and was on Saturday, it becomes a little bit more manageable.
And we said that in the preview broadcast as well, right? That the one-dimensional nature of the offense was something that we were just at that point. It was a curiosity to see how it would fare against a really tough Oklahoma defense that can rush the passer and can do all the things that we saw them do today.
Yes.
So your final score was 23-21, a huge win for Brent Venables, a huge win for Oklahoma. It is not lost on you. It is not lost on me that Oklahoma has had a brutal SEC schedule. We talked about it all season long. We talked about it all preseason long. The fact that they are here now, I think, on the doorstep of a 10-2 season with that schedule, with a lot of new people on that roster, that speaks volumes about what Brent Venables has done this year. Even if it isn't always sexy in terms of what they're doing on offense, to get to this point, they deserve a lot of success, or they deserve all the success they have coming to them because of the job that they've done. So,
and by the way, one of the headline new guys, Jaden Ott, the running back from Cal, a mix of just not working out and being beat up, has not contributed basically anything this season, and they're still doing it. Yeah.
Where do you want to go next? What jumped out to you next? I think we should start in the SEC. There's like 2 other games in particular that we probably need to lead off with here.
We can go just by ranking and talk Texas A&M coming back, because then it's easy to get to Georgia, Texas, and we will momentarily. But because Texas A&M came in number 3 in the country and fell down 30-3.
Oh my God! I was watching this game. Jaw agape. 30-3. This is the tale of 2 halves. This game, 30-3. South Carolina led at halftime.
But it's also kind of an A&M thing, by the way. The weird, messy, horrific first halves cleaned up. Continue.
A&M scored 28 unanswered to win this one. It was their largest comeback in program history. They were down 27. They needed this one to stay unbeaten. It was a putrid first half for Texas A&M. They kept tripping over themselves. They could not get any momentum going. Marcel Reed was dreadful.
Yes.
In the first half, he had 3 first half interceptions, or 3 first half turnovers, but the 2 interceptions were bad. It felt like South Carolina was in complete control of this game, and like there was no way Texas A&M was going to be able to regain momentum. But then the second half came, and the second half was a different story. The South Carolina offense effectively stalled out. Their second half possessions, I listed them off. They went turnover on downs, punt, 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 turnover on downs. That was it. Meanwhile, you had A&M scoring on their first 4 drives in the second half. They grabbed the lead. for as bad as it started for Marcel Reed, he ends up finishing with a career high 439 passing yards to go along with 3 touchdowns. So I don't know where we start with this. Do we start on the A&M side with the fact that they came from behind, that they did what they did, they maintain their lead in the SEC, they remain unbeaten, they remain, a top 3 team in the country, or do we talk about the South Carolina collapse? Which one do you want to go with first?
I think we should start positive with A&M because this has been the story of A&M's year when they blow teams out, when they get teams fired, coaches fired, when they explode in these second halves, that this is what has defined them this year, that they get better over the course of the game, that they get off the field on defense quicker and quicker. I think they're the number 1 third down defense in America, I believe. Or if they're not 1, they're in the top 3. They're not 4. And that they just shut teams down on defense in the second half and make adjustments and play angrier and control the ground. And they didn't even really control the ground that much on offense today, which I think sort of underscores when Texas A&M is succeeding, a lot of that comes on the ground. For as much flash as Marcel Reed provides, it's been Reuben Owens. It's been the guys on the ground that have really paced things. Look, it's very difficult to fall down 33 and then make it a game in a quarter. This didn't come down to the end in terms of when South Carolina allowed Texas A&M or Texas A&M earned their way back into this game. This was by the start of the fourth quarter. It was a game.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think there's a certain amount of mental fortitude it takes to be down 27 points and say to yourself, let's just go out and operate and see what happens. And South Carolina, the play calling was terrible. Now, I consider myself to be a little bit of an expert going up big in the first half after watching what Oregon did in the Alamo Bowl about a decade ago. So I know I kept hearing this on, I think it was like the halftime shows on ESPN, like the anatomy of an upset and what it takes. And really, Texas A&M gave South Carolina the blueprint to beat them, right? It's taking advantage of the turnovers. But South Carolina in that second half with an interim play caller, offensive coordinator after Mike Shula's let go, made a few terrible calls in high leverage moments on your 3rd and shorts and 4th and shorts. They're one of the worst running teams in America. And they're just sending a running back into a 9-man, 10-man box like over and over again, taking the ball out of Lenora Sellers' hands. And he wasn't great on the ground himself. But if you're going to do anything to extend drives, maybe have him make some more decisions and have him have more say in it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I thought Lenore's kind of stunk in this game.
He wasn't that good, to be clear. I agree.
Yeah, I thought there were passes out there that he missed,
Mm-hmm.
balls that were high or just errant. And I kept waiting for him to switch it on. This would have been one of those moments where Lenora Sellers could have truly become he could have like etched himself into the mythology of South Carolina football by engineering an upset here, even after the game got really close late. I kept like waiting for that moment and it never happened. And that to me was really disappointing. I want to credit A&M for what they did because digging out of a 27-point hole is not easy. Finding a way to win with 4 turnovers, going 2 of 11 on 3rd downs, that is really something.
Yeah.
Okay. That is like a multiplier that most teams can't achieve. And they did it because they're rock solid across the board, because they've got a good coach, and because it seems like this is a team that's figured out how to win in a multitude of different ways. So I don't want to take anything away from them, and certainly Marcel Reed for getting his game back on track in the second half. All of these things are very much to A&M's credit. By the way, it sounds like Mike Elko now has a 6-year contract extension. So he presumably will not be on the move amid a historic coaching cycle. Credit again to Texas A&M for kind of finding their guy, sticking with it, putting together this great season and this great program.
By the way,
nothing but continued success to them. I wish them the best.
Yes. And nearly every state trooper providing security in this game behaved appropriately. Let's be clear. Nearly every one of the troopers providing security in this game behaved appropriately, and almost all of them were able to stay within the stadium and not be sent home for trying to bump Nick Harbor for no reason in the tunnel as he was walking back from the touchdown.
What was that?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it's the easiest thing to do is stay out of the player's way. Nick Harbor's not an easy person to miss.
I saw somebody online mention, maybe it was in our Discord, I don't even know.
Not a hard person to miss, excuse me. Yeah.
So somebody talking about how the state trooper who interacted with 2 South Carolina players, I believe in the Northeast Tunnel.
Yeah.
He treated them as if they were students who had like a red Solo cup, angry that they might have like an alcoholic beverage that they weren't supposed to have.
Yeah.
It was just very bizarre.
It was like a senior walking down a high school locker room hallway or locker hallway, whatever, in a high school, and freshmen walking towards him and him not moving and hitting them in the like it was very odd behavior.
If you don't know what we're talking about, if you didn't watch the game, just go online and run a quick search for like Texas A&M South Carolina cop, and you will see exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, just a very strange, only in college football type of moment that I think we saw. Let me say this though about the South Carolina thing.
Yeah,
I had a visceral reaction to the way that they blew this game.
It was so efficient though, Ty. You gotta tip your cap. Texas
A&M came back so quickly in the second half. It was almost immediate that you knew that, oh my God, South Carolina's going to blow this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt horrible for the South Carolina people that listen to this show. The analogy that I made almost immediately to you was that they pulled a Jose Mesa.
Sure.
This was an incredible blown save. And my initial reaction, and I know it was knee jerk, and I'm not even 100% serious about it, but you could check the tapes, you could check the Slack channel. My first thought, what I sent to you was they got to fire Shane Beamer, because this was malpractice. To lose a game like this felt like malpractice to me.
Yeah.
And had they won, they would have had a real shot at a bowl with a horrible schedule and no shortage of their own deficiencies, because they got Coastal Carolina left. They play a game against Clemson to close out this year. Both of those are at home. I think winnable, potentially winnable, right?
Sure.
To lose in this manner is just an absolute stomach punch. When you had the number 3 team in the land on the ropes in their home stadium, and you walk away with a 1-point loss, 31-30. Just
does this change anything?
Dagger.
Does this change anything to you about what you feel about Texas A&M? I mean, they've had close calls this season. They haven't played an incredible schedule. They've taken care of business. Obviously, we talked about how strong they get in second halves. Does this happening repeatedly against, a team like Arkansas, now a team like South Carolina? I don't know if Texas is built to take advantage of this specific weakness.
No, come on.
But, the game's in Austin. It's not an easy game. There's a lot of emotion behind it. But does it change your outlook about what their ceiling is nationally in a potential playoff bid kind of thing?
No, it doesn't. Not for me.
I don't think so either.
No.
I think they sort of have been this, and so they're going to be entertaining one way or the other, and they'll win or lose. I mean,
it's not always how you start; it's how you finish.
That's true.
And I mean, they went on a torrid scoring streak here, 28 unanswered to win this one. And still, South Carolina had a chance at the end. They had another chance at the end, and they just like everything they tried in the second half went nowhere. And I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's play calling. I don't know if it's just Texas A&M found another gear. It's probably a combination of all those things. But the manner in which they lost this game was like heartbreaking. And again, I didn't even have a dog in the fight. I don't even remember who I picked. Probably didn't matter. I think we probably both were on Texas A&M if we picked this game at all. But this was a dagger, man. What a dagger.
It was just much more once you started seeing how this game was going in the first half. And then immediately seeing how it was going in the third quarter.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? Learn something from this.
That's all I ask. That's all I ask. Tyra knows.
How long has it been since you played the Tyra clip?
It's probably been about 11 years. I have no idea. I found it deep within the archive.
Georgia 35-10 over Texas, Dan.
Yeah, speaking of doing nothing in the second half. Continue.
Oh my God. This escalated quickly, didn't it?
Yes.
At one point, we're chatting online. It's like 14-10. The next thing you know, you take a long pee, as you like to say, and it was 35-10.
Mm-hmm.
Ball game. I thought Georgia made Texas look completely pedestrian. Completely pedestrian in this game. And
I thought Texas did a good job of that as well. Just
for a good chunk of the game,
they were in the first half, yeah.
Yeah, for a good chunk of this game, for sure. I expected this to some extent with the Texas offense. But the way that Georgia moved the ball in the Texas defense to me, especially in the second half, that is not something I was fully expecting. I didn't think they would have this much success against a good Texas defense, but they, in the second half of this game, especially as we got in the latter stages of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, it was clear that this Texas defense was on skates and Georgia had basically license to do whatever they wanted.
I'm with you. You brought up this point going into the episode that the Texas pass defense just hasn't been there, despite having a very good pass rush, that the secondary hasn't been there. The secondary has been beat up. And when the Texas offense is departing the field as efficiently as they are, you're just putting your own defense in a terrible position.
Yeah.
And I thought with Georgia's ability to stay on the field, not necessarily bombing it downfield all the time, but consistently executing, you're just wearing down. We talked about, speed test Saturday and just like wear your legs come November. And it just seemed like Georgia's game plan was perfect to wear Texas down. And Texas has dudes on this defense, especially up front, obviously in the linebacking core.
Absolutely.
Just can't stay on the field the whole time. And when Texas has the drops that they do, when they don't necessarily have go-to receivers consistently like they've had these past couple seasons, Georgia's going to be able to take advantage. And yeah, it was 14-10 in the second half. And then just absolute brass balls from Kirby Smart following a touchdown up with a perfectly executed onside kick. That wasn't even like scrummed for the ball.
No.
It was just caught in rhythm as Texas players turned their back on a gently bouncing onside kick. And that was turned into points and got a quick stop. That was then turned into points from a short field. Texas was backed up. It was an efficient and brutal display of peak Georgia football. I thought the play calling was really good from Georgia. I thought Gunnar Stockton was great in this game, like on the ground, making decisions, quick decisions. They spread the ball out really nicely. They weren't killers on the ground. It wasn't a big Chauncey Bowens game, but Nate Frazier made plays. I don't know. This was it felt like peak Georgia to me.
I mean, they would leak a running back out of the backfield to one side of the field and then to the other. And then when Texas wisened up to that, then they would leak a tight end out, or they would leak a receiver out, or Zachariah Branch would be sitting in a pocket. It just it felt to me like whatever they wanted to do, they could do.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't true for the entirety of the game, but certainly down the stretch when it counted the most, Georgia just blew the doors off of Texas. I mean, it didn't even seem like they belonged on the same field. They just completely outclassed them in the second half. On the Texas side, I mean, too many drops, too many penalties, never able to gain any kind of momentum. I think it needs to be mentioned again and again and again. The line stinks.
Yeah, but Arch also missed dudes at times.
Arch missed dudes, but the line stinks.
Yeah.
They can't run. And when the line stinks and you can't run, that puts more pressure on your quarterback. And I thought, all things considered, Arch Manning played a pretty good game. He made some bad throws. He definitely had some misses, but I think people need to understand it's all on him. Yeah. It's all on him. I talked about it in the preview, but I checked the stats on the most pressured FBS quarterbacks, most pressured Power 4 quarterbacks, and Arch Manning was in the top 10 coming into week 12. I'm sure, I don't know what it's going to be coming out of week 12, but for sure, it's a lot on him. It's all on his arm. He was clearly emotional about it. He wanted to play a better game. I think he did all right. I don't think this is his fault that they lost this game. I think Georgia's the better team. I think this was a demonstration of what Georgia can do against a team that doesn't have an offensive line that's up to stuff. So I don't necessarily blame Arch for being emotional about it. I thought, all things considered, again, he played a pretty good game, but they were not the better team out there. They certainly did not have the offense to go toe-to-toe with this Georgia defense.
No, and this Georgia defense hasn't been incredible this year at all times, but sort of outside of, some of the Alabama game, the Tennessee game, the Ole Miss game, it's been quietly improving. But you're right, this is not a defense to the recent Georgia standard.
No.
And it's very young. Obviously, they're going to grow into it. And I think they have grown into it. I think they're at the point now where they're just not where they were a month ago, 2 months ago.
We can stop talking now about how young they are, right? Because
They've started
played,
8, 9, 10 games.
Yeah, they
It's,
played like 2.5 months of this now. They're sort of
No.
they've got some seasoning for sure.
The athletes are there, and I saw CJ Allen got hurt. We'll see, how big of a deal that is. I mean, he is obviously a huge deal for this defense. We'll see what that means for the rest of their season. Obviously setting up for a huge game against Georgia Tech to finish things out. But no, I don't know how you come away anything but crazy impressed with what Georgia's been able to do lately.
I completely agree with you. So here's where Georgia's at right now.
Please.
Georgia's done with their SEC schedule. They do not have the head-to-head tiebreaker with Alabama because they played and they lost. But in order for them to play for the SEC title, they either need Auburn to beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl or Texas to beat Texas A&M when they play their rivalry, and they renew that rivalry in Austin last week of the season. It's also worth noting that if both of those teams lose, there is potential for it to be Georgia against Ole Miss. I'm not counting on that. That would require a lot to happen.
You're talking about if Texas A&M and Alabama lose.
If Texas A&M,
Georgia, Ole Miss.
Yes, and Alabama lose and Ole Miss wins the Egg Bowl, that would be a scenario in which you get some different teams that maybe some are expecting in that SEC title game. But right now, I still think Alabama is sort of in the driver's seat. Obviously, the same is true for Texas A&M. The most likely SEC championship game right now, by virtue of the results that we saw in Week 12, it looks like Texas A&M against Alabama. Georgia will be next up. Beyond that, that's when you get into the weird Ole Miss scenario. Texas is fully out of all this stuff now. They just are. They have 3 losses. They're not going to play for the SEC. They're out of the playoff picture. They could certainly play a large role if they knock off Texas A&M the last week of the regular season. That could have a real impact on what A&M's path looks like. But in terms of playing for some of these, more grandiose achievements that many had expected at the start of the year, that's not going to happen in 2025 for Texas.
No. Also, Georgia looks like the best team in the SEC right now, and they're not even in line to play, which might be fine by them, honestly, given schedule of playoff stuff.
That's the SEC. There are other results in the SEC. We'll come back to those a little bit later on, but those are sort of like the 3 biggies.
Sure.
There were plenty of other games around college football that involve ranked teams, that involve playoff, that involve conference implications that we can talk through now if you're interested.
Would love to.
The ACC is fascinating for a variety of different reasons. I am most interested in Pitt, as you know, because I picked Pitt to go to the ACC title game.
Okay.
Pitt had a non-conference game in Week 12 against Notre Dame. Pitt got smoked by Notre Dame. They got absolutely shelled by Notre Dame in this game.
And to their credit, they let it happen quickly.
They did. They
didn't give anybody any hope for very long in this game.
No, I watched this game with my mom. I went up to Mama H's. I figure, you know what? This is a prime opportunity to do that. I don't get to watch games with her anymore because of what we do.
Yeah, build some core memories.
I want to go up and watch this game with her. So I got some cheesesteaks from the good cheesesteak place by me. Took them up. We watched the game. After the first few plays, got that like little nauseous feeling in my stomach. Like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah,
I've seen this before. But it was like one drive. Notre Dame stopped them on that one. I think they got the ball. They punted, but then right out, like it happened.
He didn't even do anything on that. They had like a 15-yard gain, and Mason Heinschel missed like not.
It was a 21-yard drive.
It was
those 21 yards felt very easy, which is why I was nervous.
There was a bad drop that happened like inside the 10.
I know. But a few plays in, I was getting that feeling in the stomach. But then after that, the game was basically over after the first 4 drives. Pitt had 86 yards at half. Notre Dame was in the backfield every play. I would love to see them convert some more of that pressure into sacks, but considering where they were at the start of the year, baby steps will take pressure. Okay.
Yeah.
Baby steps. This is definite improvement. It certainly was not the cleanest game for CJ Carr. I think he had 2 bad interceptions in this one, but continued his nice rapport with Malachi Fields. They had 2 touchdowns together through the air. Solid on the ground for Jeremiah Love. There really isn't a whole lot.
Really nice spin cycle run early on.
There really is not a whole lot to look at least on the Notre Dame side, and feel pessimistic about. I mean,
Right.
they dominated Pitt in this game. They've got games against Syracuse and Stanford to close out the year. And I understand there's going to be a whole conversation now where they rank, where they should rank relative to the field and the playoff conversation. We should probably just wait until Tuesday night or at least Monday on our show to talk through that in a little bit more detail. We don't have to drone on about it now. But Notre Dame will be there probably in the top 10 in some way, shape, or form. This is not the type of performance that they should be knocked for because it was a ranked Pitt team. It's still a Pitt team that has a lot to play for, and I think has some interesting matchups here with the teams remaining on their schedule. So Notre Dame acquitted itself well. They were dominant. This is what you want to see if you're a Notre Dame fan, if you're somebody who is curious about Notre Dame, perhaps where they rank amid this chaotic playoff field is what I would say at this point.
Sure.
Notre Dame did what it needed to do. The Pitt thing is kind of a separate conversation.
Sure.
But at least on the Notre Dame side, you could not have asked for a better performance on the road.
2 points. Adon Schuler, that's the safety.
Adon
Schuler, excuse me. Real good player. Seems very good. Had pick six early.
Had an incredible return of a 2-point conversion.
Yes.
Like 5 yards deep in the end zone, used his blockers, used his convoy, danced around, did an incredible job running it back all the way, the length of the field, and then some for 2 points.
Yes. So yeah, the Notre Dame secondary was looked at as a weakness as a unit. Obviously, there are talented players there early on in the season when they were struggling against, Miami and Texas A&M. It seems like there's been some scheme shifts and guys have gotten healthier. They've come to play, and there has been the absence was felt earlier of Xavier Watts, who was really a really good box safety. And it seems like they have picked things up very nicely.
God,
and just
yeah,
a quick copy edit here. You said Pitt is ranked. Let's say Pitt was ranked.
Pitt was ranked. Okay.
Pitt was ranked. I don't know if they're going to have a number next to their name moving forward this season, but we'll see. But it was not particularly close very quickly.
And look, there's probably not a whole lot more to say about it. Notre Dame still could have scored more. Sure. I mean, they definitely left some points on the board.
I had this one, by the way. Yeah. I said Notre Dame was going to rip them apart.
They did rip them apart.
Yeah.
And Pat Narduzzi kind of called it too.
Pat Narduzzi and I were on the same page.
Pat Narduzzi said we could lose by 100. It won't matter if we win the last two. And, I guess he said the quiet part out loud. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to be piss and vinegar out there and get the troops fired up. But if they win against Georgia Tech and Miami to close out the year, they have a really good shot of getting to the ACC title game. It is not ironclad. It's going to be like down to the 6th tiebreaker in the ACC to determine who is playing whom.
Yeah.
But if you beat those two teams, if you're Pitt, you stand a pretty good chance to make it through into that ACC title game. And I actually think they match up pretty well with the teams that are remaining on their schedule. I can talk through why when we do our previews in the coming weeks.
Based only on today's action, two very different defenses on Pitt's schedule moving forward, in that Georgia Tech may not have one, and in that Miami's looked awfully, awfully good today.
Virginia beat Duke 34-17 in a very, very pivotal ACC matchup. I thought Manny Diaz said it best in the postgame. Quote, "We were thoroughly outclassed by Virginia. I think their quarterback was outstanding and in terrific control." He is talking about Chandler Morris. Chandler Morris got hurt in UVA's last game. Chandler Morris was upgraded to probable late in the week after we recorded our preview. Chandler Morris played and looked awesome.
Yes.
He looked great in this game. I felt like this was about as good as we have seen UVA look all year.
Agree.
Like, we're used to them eking out wins this season. They crushed Duke in this game. And we knew Duke was something of a liability on defense. I think we panned that to various extents. Duke was favored in this game, so we weren't the only ones. But the numbers here were ridiculous. It was a really balanced effort from the Hoos, 540 total yards, 316 through the air, 224 on the ground, 12 of 19 on third downs. They had 11 more minutes of possession. By nearly every measure, Dan, UVA won this one going away. This is a really nice showing for Tony Elliott.
Yes, and a really nice showing, all things considered, given Chandler Morris's injury. Given the fact that Virginia isn't led by their offense, they've been led by winning those big moments late and a vastly improved defenses with some new faces, getting key stops, and against a Duke offense that has shown out, win and lose, win or lose, win and lose, whatever. Virginia really stepped up on that side of the ball. They haven't this season had a ton of playmakers on offense, but defensively has been where they've made their, where they've made hay. And it was especially nice given what's at stake in the ACC. I think it was Trell Harris who stepped up on the outside for Virginia on offense. Like that, they are winning in a more complete way, I think bodes well for whatever their ceiling may be this year.
If you are UVA, you're in terrific shape now for the ACC title game. I mean, if you had talked about UVA being in the ACC championship at the beginning of the season or when we did our previews at the end of July, I mean, we would have called each other crazy if anyone made that prediction. But
again, one of the easiest, if not it was them in North Carolina schedule-wise.
But even still,
yeah,
I don't think there was any way to foresee the kind of impact that Chandler Morris. I mean, they were active in the portal. They were active about trying to improve some of those aspects of the roster that they thought needed help. Chandler Morris, though, has been a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And they now are on the precipice of beating Virginia Tech to close out the season. It is not, again, a slam dunk that they will get into that game. If Pitt loses, I think, to both Georgia Tech and Miami, and SMU wins out, then we could be looking at a weird tiebreaker scenario where it's like SMU or UVA. I'm not going to talk through all those things here, but UVA is in a really good spot right now to get to that championship game. And if they could pull off a win once they get there, get back in or get to the playoffs for the first time, obviously in school history. So the other thing that I would add is that this win is very good news for the ACC because if Duke would have won, it would have opened up that possibility that an unranked ACC champion could be left out entirely. And it's obviously still possible, but it looks increasingly less likely that scenario could come to fruition. So,
well, especially look, if Virginia goes 11-2 and wins the conference, you're talking about a Virginia team that threw a game-losing interception in the end zone to NC State in a 4-point loss. So not an embarrassing loss. NC State is pretty average this season, but they didn't lose by 27 points. And they lost to Wake Forest in a low-scoring game in which their quarterback was hurt almost immediately. So their resume is going to be fine. If they finish 11-2 winning the ACC, they will be in the top 25, and it will be fine. They'll be in the top 20 likely.
Number 17 USC 26 knocks off 21 Iowa.
Yeah.
26-21 is your final score. This one did not start off great for the Trojans.
No.
But Lincoln Riley, man, comeback win over a tough physical Iowa team in weather. It keeps them in the conversation. All the right kinds of conversations. They got a monster game next week against your Oregon Ducks in Eugene. I talked through on a couple of our episodes last week about, just some like not so far-fetched possibilities for USC for the remainder of the season. I thought this was a really nice win for them and probably one that won't get the headlines, but I thought the way that they fought back, the way that they came to play, the way that they were able to run their offense against a really good defense like Iowa was
in a monsoon, in like heavy rain. Yeah.
I mean, like I'm sort of like tripping over my words here because it's late and I apologize, but like, I just thought their ability to play their game through the air, to feed Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane when Iowa knew that they were going to feed both those guys. I just thought that was really impressive. Like they ran effectively enough to offer a little bit of variety, but everyone knew, like it was kind of telegraphed that those are the guys, at least through the air, that they wanted to try and attack them with. And Mekhi Kyle Lemon had 10 catches. Jacoby Lane had 7 catches. They both had really good games. They were able to do this against a really tough defense that knew essentially it was coming. And I don't know. I thought this win showed a lot of grit in a way that like we have not necessarily seen from the Lincoln Riley era USC Trojans.
Yeah, there was some turnover. I say luck. I don't mean you're lucky to recover a fumble, but fumbles in general. There was a kind of a wild interception that was it caromed off of an Iowa player.
So he's down on the ground.
Yeah.
He's down on the ground. It was a low throw. It wasn't even a bad throw. It was just a low throw because it had to be. The ball bounces off the guy's hands up and into the hands of a USC defender.
A defensive lineman, yeah.
Yeah.
I came away impressed as well about certain aspects of USC that I think it happens to be very smart to find Mekhi Lemon as often as you possibly can. They ran fine. There were tough yards. It was bad weather. It's a good defense. You're right about all of those things. It was also Jacoby Lane, the tight ends to a lesser extent. I thought Jade Mayava was largely good, though a little bit off, but it's the weather thing too. That's understandable. Like you can say that, they looked a little bit arrhythmic. I thought along the trenches, they weren't great. I thought the offensive line got pushed around a little bit too much in the run game, especially in short yardage early.
Yeah.
And I thought I don't know. There was something about Iowa sort of, especially in that first half, dominating things in the trenches, that it's still a successful season for USC no matter what happens, it seems. But I don't know. We're into like year 4 of Lincoln Riley, and this is still happening. I thought Iowa's second half game plan was a little bit wonky, but you also have a passing game that doesn't really exist, so you're limited. Iowa had the moment late. I don't know if you have an opinion of it. It was Caden Weechin along, trying to tiptoe a catch in that would have changed the complexion of this game. Pull in a longer catch in traffic, and it was reviewed, and Iowa fans are up in arms that his toe tapped in, and USC, I didn't think his toe got in. I think it sort of appeared to be in one frame, but then as you watch like his foot more fully land, his toe hit the sideline. But if you need that, that's not great. Iowa was penalized a little bit more than they were against Oregon. I thought it was a really nice win for USC, all in to beat a team like Iowa in the weather circumstance that it was. Really nice win. Next week's game should be enormous in Eugene.
Next week's game is going to be enormous.
Yeah.
And again, USC winning out combined with Michigan beating Ohio State would put USC in the Big Ten title game.
Sure.
Which is, again, I know this is kind of being peddling a little too much in the world of the hypothetical, but I think it is at least worth bringing up because Big Ten has so many damn teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're used to the teams at the top. We're used to the teams with controversy. But USC, despite the fact that they're always kind of in the limelight, to an extent has flown a bit under the radar with respect to that Big Ten conversation.
Sure.
And this was a really nice win over a good team at home, weird weather. But I thought this really showed me something on the USC side. It wasn't perfect, but for sure, the fact that they got this win, that Lincoln Riley got this win. I mean, it seemed like they were pretty emotional on the sidelines. They were, this meant a lot to them. And I think it should. I was really impressed.
Down maybe their best offensive lineman in Elijah Page, left tackle, down Kamari Ramsey, maybe their best defensive player overall. Hopefully they can get those guys back for this stretch run against Oregon and UCLA. But they're a beat up team. They've been losing a bunch of dudes, so their depth will be tested.
I want to talk about the Big 12 next, but while we're here, we should at least do the speed run of the Big 10 because there were a bunch of other Big 10 games that I think warrant mentioning. We had a 38-point win for Ohio State over UCLA. We had, this is quick math. 29-point win for your Oregon Ducks over Minnesota on Friday night.
Very sharp. They looked very, very good. It was a complete performance. They pressured Drake Lindsay and the Minnesota offense, who was not able to do anything. Dante Moore was very good. Kenyon Sadiq came back and was excellent. It was a complete performance from the jump. They jumped.
Did I see that Dante Moore was like 18 of 20?
No, he was 27 of 30 is how we finished.
27 of 30. Okay.
27 of 30. bunch of guys ran, they're averaging 8-9 yards a carry. They rotated a bunch of guys on defense, and it just was not that competitive a game. So Oregon really showed out nicely. Short week after that emotional win against Iowa, which has been the sort of calling card of Oregon. They don't lose the games that they really should win.
Indiana did beat Wisconsin. It was a sloppy start to this game. They led 10-7 at halftime, but then they get it together in the second half. They outscore Wisconsin 21-0 the rest of the way. Fernando Mendoza had more touchdowns than incompletions. He was 22 of 24 with 4 touchdowns. The way we've seen this a couple times from Indiana now, where it takes them a little bit to get going, but once they get going, they're pretty damn good. Obviously, 31-7 was your final there.
Yeah. Strong thoughts, happy thoughts, healing thoughts to Gideon Atuka, the Wisconsin running back who went down in this game. They were running the ball pretty well. They were sort of, toughing out a lot of difficult yards against Indiana. And I think it was Charlie Becker who helped open things up for Indiana, who has stepped in place of Elijah Surratt in the receiving corps. Fernando Mendoza, yeah, you're right. Took a little while to get going, but once he did, was nails.
Penn State wins the Land-Grant Trophy, 28-10 over Michigan State. Really nice day for Katron Allen. Illinois knocked off Maryland 24-6, and Michigan survived in Wrigley Field, Dan. 24-22 was your final score. They needed a 31-yard field goal as time expired from Dominic Zavada, their All-American kicker. Speaking of Jose Mesas, Northwestern kind of pulled a Jose Mesa and blew this one, didn't they?
They did. They absolutely did. So they had multiple opportunities to close this out in the fourth quarter in Wrigley Field, taking advantage of turnovers from Michigan and miscues from Michigan over the course of this game. You mentioned the kicker. Not a good game for Dominic Zavada, right? He missed a couple, one long one shorter one, nailed the one at the end to win this one. But Northwestern was in position to close out a huge win. I think they had the misfortune of converting, whatever the word is, 5 turnovers and coughing up 0 and still losing. So winning the turnover battle, 5-0, which is, I guess, what the Chargers did when they choked away the playoff game against the Jaguars a couple years ago.
Oh my God.
Extremely difficult to do. Extremely difficult to win the turnover battle 5-0 and lose. And so I guess congratulations on that, Northwestern. I don't know. It was a very winnable game for the Cats, and good for Michigan for surviving. Andrew Marsh was terrific. Freshman receiver for Michigan. Looks like they have a true number 1 receiver moving forward for at least these next couple years, which is great news for Bryce Underwood in this offense. But got to get a lot of this cleaned up pretty quickly.
Yeah, you mentioned Andrew Marsh, 12 catches for 189. Really nice day. All right, let's get over to the Big 12.
Please.
We've waited too long. So BYU is still up pretty significantly on TCU at time of recording. I think we can assume that BYU's, unless they pull a Jose Mesa as they drive here for another score, I think we can assume that BYU is going to emerge victorious in this one and probably slide up a notch on the new batch of college football playoff rankings when they drop in the early part of the week. Texas Tech ran one up on UCF. That was a dominant showing, 48-9. Utah, very dominant in knocking off Baylor. They ran for 380 yards, Dan, in a 55-28 win. Arizona goes on the road and knocks off Cincinnati 30-24. A really nice showing for Arizona. I am proud of Arizona for the showing that they put in here. We had K-State winning by 8 over Oklahoma State, and we had Arizona State hanging on to win by a 25-23 score over West Virginia.
Yes, West Virginia moved the ball quite nicely through the air and absolutely made that a game, coming back to make it a game. Didn't watch any of Kansas State, Oklahoma State. You'll forgive me because Mike Gundy has built 2 teams. I texted this to you earlier. He's going to finish out his career, essentially, with his legacy at Oklahoma State. Obviously, he's gone. Building 2 0-9 teams in the Big 12. Woof. Really nice win for Arizona. Again, a really nice defensive performance. Not always on the ground, but getting a lot of stops. I think Cincinnati was terrible on third downs. Watched this one on and off. Came away just super impressed with how complete a performance it was for Arizona, who, coupled with their schedule, which includes an Arizona State team down Sam Leavitt that's had a disappointing defense this season, Arizona has an opportunity with Baylor next week at home, Arizona State on the road, obviously in the Territorial Cup, to go 9-3 after last season in year 2 of Brent Brennan, which is pretty incredible because they already appear to be the better team in that state, which I never would have considered.
It's wild. It's wild. And like the thing that you mentioned, the defense, I mean, it was a great defensive showing. Their defense has been really good. They're really good against the pass.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I think we talked about was that this was like kind of a perfect letdown spot for them.
Yes.
After their loss to Kansas last week. But
no, they beat Kansas.
Or after they beat Kansas.
It was a chaotic win. Yeah.
After the chaotic win, right. But since he was the one who looked like they were in a look-ahead spot with BYU on deck next week, they threw an interception on the first play of the game. Like they sort of got off on the wrong foot here. And, you know, through the course of this one, it was the combination of the Arizona defense and the Arizona offense. Like Noah Fafita had a really solid game. They ran really well. This was a big-time win for these guys. And if you think of it more broadly, they're like an overtime loss, their last-second field goal away from both BYU and Houston, maybe being like 8-1. So this has been a really good campaign for Brent Brennan. He deserves a lot of credit for the way that he has guided this team, especially after the way it went last season.
By the way, I will say this. The Baylor game wasn't like a flash fry. This was a one-score game in the third quarter, and then Utah just sort of went up another gear. They flipped on the NOS, and it was all on the ground. Baylor couldn't stop anything. But Sawyer Robertson, this offense, they had drives. They made plays. They were somewhat balanced. And then Utah just, another gear. And so Utah's going to need help, though. Utah's going to need help for some sort of like big postseason aspiration, given where they are in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, I mean, there are a whole slew of possibilities in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And I did my best here kind of on short notice.
I chortle because it's impossible. But yeah.
Yeah, I did my best to try and piece together what some of the possibilities might look like in the Big 12. We would need like hours on hours to try and go through all of these things because there are just too many possibilities. I do think we've kind of narrowed the field down to like 4, maybe 5 teams that in theory could have a potential case to get into that Big 12 championship game, but it's still very, very muddled, and it will be fascinating to follow for sure over these next few weeks.
Do you want to round out the SEC? A couple other big
Please.
matchups?
What did you see in the SEC?
In terms of intrigue. Ole Miss had just an eventual impressive win over Florida, but this was back and forth in the first half, and into the fourth quarter was a game. And I don't know whatever the opposite of Jose Mesa is in your closer's world.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a Mo Rivera thing.
This is a Mariano Rivera. Yeah.
You'd have to exclude the postseason in a couple of seasons for the Yankees, of course. But take your pick. Close this game quite impressively. Trinidad Chambliss made a ton of plays, both with his legs. Kewan Lacey goes for over 200 yards in this game.
Yeah, man.
They eventually figured, let's just go straight at Florida on the ground. This is an exhausted team. And Florida sort of threw everything they could in the first half, literally and figuratively, and it looked like it was going to go back and forth for 4 quarters. It very much did not. The Ole Miss defense tightened up super impressively in the second half, made a ton of plays. A semi-maligned defense this season, given Ole Miss's hopes, and came away with a really nice win against Florida in a what seemed like it could be like a weird, losable Lane Kiffin loses a 53-48 shootout type game.
Yeah.
They definitely did not.
Did I see that Ahmad Hardy ran for 300 yards?
He did run for 300 yards. We correctly pointed out that the Mizzou running back room might need extra oxygen for all of the exercise they're going to get against the Mississippi State front.
Good Lord.
We were correct.
300 yards. That's wild.
Yeah. Matt Zollers took a nice step forward, I would say. We'll see what he's able to do. He has Oklahoma next week.
Yep.
Oprah Beulah was out on the field. he was warming up. He was going through some motion stuff. Like, we'll see. But if and when or whatever happens with his future this season and getting back on the field. But yeah, why throw it when you have Ahmad Hardy doing what he was doing?
All right, so LSU won, Tennessee won, Kentucky won.
Not pretty for LSU. Arkansas made some mistakes. Arkansas was right there, had opportunities. LSU won a game. That counts. That's something.
Counts for something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Elsewhere, the only other conference that I think we need to round out here is some of the other stuff that went down in the ACC.
Yeah.
And we had Georgia Tech needing a 23-yard field goal with 11 seconds left to beat Boston College on the road. We had a really good game, a fun game, I thought, to watch on Friday night between Clemson and Louisville. This game was, I believe, the first college football game that came on after news broke that YouTube and Disney came to their new pact and the programming became available immediately.
We're back, baby.
Ooh, yeah. So that was nice. But this ended up being, I just thought, a really interesting game to watch. 20-19, Clemson emerged victorious.
Yeah.
And Wake Forest beat North Carolina, which isn't noteworthy on its own. But I should point out that Wake now, only, speaking of teams that could go 9-3, as we talked about with Arizona,
right.
Wake just needs to beat Delaware and Duke, which seems very doable. And Jake Dickert would go 9-3 in his first season, which would be crazy.
Which is absolutely bonkers. And with that defense, seems not unreasonable that they could put a lot of pressure on Gio Lopez and the North Carolina offense, which again struggled. And it is worth mentioning because this is also a rivalry game. It's an important enough game that they scheduled each other even when they weren't on each other's ACC schedule.
That's right.
So that it's always meaningful for these teams to play and beat one another. So I'm glad you did mention it. Florida State beating up on Virginia Tech. Good for Tommy C. Good for Florida State, a beat-up team. Deuce Robinson went off against Virginia Tech, who was in the news, starting in the early part of the Saturday college football news cycle, because apparently there are ongoing serious talks with James Franklin.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means to you.
In this moment, as James Franklin may or may not be waiting to hear about all of the jobs that may or may not become available and figure out what he wants to do with his life, that Virginia Tech and James Franklin apparently have mutual interest in one another.
We'll see. I know nothing on this front.
Okay.
But I think it'd be a really good hire for Virginia Tech if he ended up being the guy.
Mentioned it earlier that Miami's defensive performance and Georgia Tech's defensive performance were very different. This was like Miami firing on all cylinders. This is also a Miami team that's beat up. Like, they had younger guys on both sides of the ball, played pretty major roles in this one. I think Gerard Pringle started at running back for the Canes. This was another game from the jump that Miami just fried an NC State offense, which has been a good offense. It has generated a ton of big plays. Couldn't do anything in this.
They didn't do anything against Miami. No,
and it was
Miami
immediate. Miami's had started games out kind of slowly at times, and they jumped on NC State. So certainly the kind of game you want on your resume when you are trying to impress as many voters, although now we're down a voter in Mac Rhodes, right? At Baylor, a committee member, as Miami can. No, quite impressive. And then the final game to talk about in the ACC, I guess, if there's any other stray thoughts about Georgia Tech, Boston College.
I mean,
nice win.
They gave up over 500 yards again. I think is the thing on the Georgia Tech side. I mean, the defense has been a problem now for just more specifically these last 2 weeks. They're giving up over 500 yards.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what this game looks like next week against Pitt. The game is at home, but Pitt can move the ball. Pitt can throw. And I don't think that's great for Georgia Tech because it doesn't seem like they're able to stop much of anything right now. And I would say, secondly, Pitt, even though they gave up a long run and they gave up some yards to Jeremiah Love, this is a defense that, by and large, is pretty good at stopping the run. And I think the combination of those two factors make them a really interesting pairing for Georgia Tech. We've seen Georgia Tech in a few of these games now where they're maybe closer than you would expect. I think Georgia Tech is gettable. I think you probably already know where I'm going to go with my pick this week, but I need to look a little bit more at it before I make it official. But I think it's a bad matchup for Georgia Tech this week, given the way that they're playing defense right now.
In 4 of their last 6 ACC games, Boston College scored 7, 10, 10, 13 points. Okay? This is not a prolific offense. They scored 34 against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, their defense actually looked like, through 6, 7, 8 games, like a top 50-ish, 60-ish type defense. And maybe that's just a product of their schedule. Probably almost certainly is. One of the better improvement stories. Bottom has completely fallen out. And good for Tech for winning. It was a really nice, the final game-winning drive for them was as expected. Obviously, a huge dose of Haynes King on the ground and through the air. I don't know how you get this fixed, 2 weeks before Georgia, but they're going to have to win these games 45-40 unless they do.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play your Week 12 reverbs right now.
Yeah.
We're going to talk through some of our group of 5 scenarios that we've outlined here. And then we're going to close this thing out with doing some dude alerts. All right.
Love that.
Here are your Week 12 reverbs. A little bit shorter, but definitely more impactful in Week 12 than we're used to. Shay cut these together. Let's have a listen.
If you didn't watch ECU Memphis, then you're doing college football wrong.
Led with it.
Hey, Dan Inside. This is Tommy calling in from Virginia.
My name is Curtis. I'm calling from Lincoln.
Hey, it's Royce from Philadelphia. I think just with all the near misses today, it's pretty clear that this is actually sphincter tightening Saturday. Thanks.
Sometimes you just have to win your lunkers.
Mike Elko is a level 20 warlock. I'm just so thankful he's on our side. Giga Maggies.
Notre Dame and Oregon keep winning, and everyone has their sights set on solid verbal Saturday. But are we overlooking the very real possibility of Friendship Friday?
The ugliest piece of furniture, trophy, stays in State College. We are so back.
Love, bummer in Tuscaloosa.
Dan, Ty, this is Sooner Point in Maryland. I know that Kalen DeBoer wore the black hoodie of death, but did we just see Brent Venables introduce the black polo of death? Boomer Sooner.
I think after 3 big games this year involving Duke football, I think we need our money back or a refund of some kind.
I know. I'm surprised as you are that Virginia played a football game that was not decided by 1 score. By the way, thanks for picking Duke, guys.
Does the Big Ten have a Pac-12 problem?
Hi, this is Steve in Atlanta, Georgia, calling about 11-win Indiana. Smoke when you got them. Coach State wins again.
We beat some Hokies, whatever that is, and now all we have to do is conquer some Wolves next week, and we get to go bowling. Who'd have thunk it?
Watching Texas versus Georgia is a lot like watching a PGA Tour broadcast where the announcer is trying to argue over which player has the better short putting game.
As a Texas fan, that onside kick is going to live rent-free in my head for an entire week.
I am a Cal fan who also became an Akron fan through playing as them on NCAA. I have now had the misfortune of watching Ben Finley play quarterback for 2 of my teams. At least this time he's not getting reps over Fernando Mendoza. Please fire Joe Moorhead.
Hey guys, I'm calling to report that they're riding in the streets of Cambridge, Massachusetts as the Harvard Crimson march down the field in the final 22 seconds to beat Penn on a 53-yard field goal and clinch an Ivy League championship.
From way downtown, bang! Dan, 53 yards for the win for Harvard.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. So that sets up Harvard-Yale, right?
Harvard-Yale.
Biggest of them all in the Ivy.
It's huge, yeah.
All right, cool. I saw, didn't Lafayette also win
35
close?
to 28.
Lehigh won easy.
They are setting up their maybe a little bit of a look-ahead spot for the Leps.
Sure.
Being so, they host Lehigh in the big rivalry next week. Lehigh won by 20, I believe 27 to 20. We'll see. Big game coming up this week. All right.
That close? I thought Lehigh won more comfortably, like 27-7 or something.
What did I say?
27-20.
No, 27-7 was the final. They won by 20.
Oh,
what I meant.
There it is.
All right, so let's close it out with this. We'll do dude alerts. We'll let the fine people go. The G6 playoff spot. I think the race for this is going to be fascinating. Okay.
I'm with you.
Here is what went down just among the contending teams, or what I think are the contending teams in the G6. All right. Over in the American, we had Navy knock off USF 41-38.
Huge, by the way.
Huge.
Like Horvath goes down in the second half. They don't miss a beat on offense. They take
No.
it to USF. Did a great job.
East Carolina, the Pirates take down Memphis. Now, they were favored by 3.
Yeah.
3.5, depends where you look. They end up winning 31-27. So they win, they cover. They're an interesting case.
Yeah, and Memphis had the ball at the end with not that much time to drive the field and go for the win. ECU got that stop.
Tulane beat FAU. No big surprise there, 35-24.
Yep.
And North Texas ran one up on UAB by a 53-24 margin.
I mean, of
The
course.
other
A nice
of course.
green tie.
No, of course not. The other game of note here on the G6 level, James Madison 58-10 over App State. Clearly aware that style points may matter for them given their current circumstances. All right.
Yes.
We are almost guaranteed a 3 or 4-way tie between some combination of ECU, Navy, North Texas, and Tulane in the American at this point.
Okay.
I have not had time to work through all of the scenarios yet, but I do believe that math favors ECU if they win out over both UTSA and FAU, which seems doable. I don't know if there's a little bit of a letdown effect after this big win over Memphis, but should the Pirates go on and win their remaining games, they're in a really, really good spot to get to that American championship.
Yep.
The issue for the American is that they're all beating each other.
Yep.
All right. They're pulling a real old like Big 12 right now, where they're potentially cannibalizing their own chances of getting to the playoff. South Florida was ranked 24th last week. Obviously, that's going to change now. James Madison was ranked by both the AP and the coaches polls, but not by the committee. I suspect that will also change. So where things stand right now, I think when we get our latest batch of rankings on Tuesday night, James Madison is going to be ranked. There are going to be a collection of American teams that are in the others receiving votes category. And depending on how this thing shakes out the last couple weeks of the season, it is going to be a true dogfight to see which one of those conferences or the conference representative ends up getting ranked a little bit higher. And that will be the team that eventually gets that final bid and probably ends up being the 12 seed playing whoever the 5 is.
Right.
So there's a lot, I think, to play for and a lot to watch for. I think you said it on one of the episodes we did a week ago, but like this is low key, maybe the most interesting part of the playoff. Obviously, we're going to have some teams in the top 10 that end up losing down the stretch, and that will make the conversation more interesting. But sort of on like the fringes of that conversation, really the race to be number 12 is going to be fascinating, especially as these teams all play against each other. Conference championship games. We know we're going to see some upsets. I am very plugged into what's going on here.
Okay.
Again, I have not had a chance to go through all the scenarios, but I'm going to do my part to have as many of those at the ready for when we do our next one on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think everybody just needs to fall in line and everybody needs to lose to North Texas. That's the easiest path here because I think they have 2 easy-ish games remaining.
They do.
So their path to the championship game is, I think, relatively clear. Yes.
Well, it is and it isn't, because once we start talking about 4-way ties, we start looking at things like getting to like the 5th tiebreaker in some cases, which involves computer rankings that I do not have access to.
But North Texas, the only tiebreaker they don't have is in this moment over South Florida, who has 2 losses.
Right. That's
So
correct.
their path to the championship game is clean.
Their path is relatively clean. I mean, they beat UAB this week. They've got Rice on the road, and then they're home against Temple.
Right.
So I think if you look at all of the projections, like all the projected winners right now, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
North Texas would be in there against ECU.
Right. Because ECU has UTSA, which will be tough. FAU, not as tough, but those are both on the road. Should also mention JMU, because they're in this conversation, has like a weirdly not difficult non-conference. They lose to Louisville, but they have Wazoo left as a resume piece. I guess the only real resume piece for JMU at this point is that they beat Old Dominion earlier on in the season. But yeah, this will be a fascinating end. And of course, as we alluded to, Navy has Memphis left in terms of a resume building national win.
Yeah. So it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a bunch of teams vying for one spot. And, there again, before Duke lost, there was at least a possibility that two of these conference champs could get in if the ACC champ was not going to be ranked. But I there's still a possibility for that. I think those odds have diminished greatly.
Yeah.
Given the fact that Duke lost, and we're going to have a bunch of teams vying for that one spot.
Yep.
Be pretty.
Should
crazy.
be great.
Pretty crazy. Let's do dude alerts. You ready?
Please.
Who are our dudes for week 12, Dan?
I have Andrew Marsh, Trell Harris, Jacoby Thomas for Miami. I have the Bowen brothers and Tate Sandell for Oklahoma. Kenyon Sadiq for Oregon. Gunnar Stockton for Georgia. A lot of quarterbacks in a losing effort this week had big games. I mean, like the picks from guys like Marcel Reed and Sawyer Robertson weren't great, but they threw for a ton of yardage. How do you not include Ahmad Hardy in this list? Haynes King had a crazy, kind of had to do it all himself effort, given what they needed to beat Boston College. How about Katron Allen?
Yeah,
I'm going to say he's a dude just because of this season being as disappointing as it's been for Penn State. And he keeps just piling up the yardage and trying his best to end dudes' lineages. So good for Katron Allen. Has been a dude, continues to be a dude. How about, I had his name here. Casey Concepcion had another nice game for Texas A&M. Mekhi Lemon, I mentioned. Reed Harris for Boston College in a losing effort goes for 142 yards. I don't know. A bunch of really good dudes. Mentioned Kewan Lacey for Ole Miss. Paced that win for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss against Florida. A lot of really nice performances this week.
And I want to nominate Jacob Rodriguez, who got his first offensive touchdown for the second consecutive week, struck the Heisman pose.
Toting the rock.
Yeah, they put him in as like the Wildcat quarterback, high school quarterback, as it seems all these guys are high school quarterbacks. Doesn't matter how big or small they are. They're that good at being out there that they're all their high school quarterback. And they said that they repped some of these like Wildcat formations in practice this week. As it got a little bit closer, they started to like fine tune what the play looked like. And I saw some commentary from him after the game that, he's standing on the sidelines and the coaches are saying, hey man, be ready, be ready.
Sure.
Be ready. Gets the rock, has an opportunity to score down the goal line and gets it. So good for him.
Kind of love that this year's defensive players getting in on offense to get red zone looks are Texas Tech's and America's best linebacker, one of the best three he's obviously Buckus level, and Caden Proctor, left tackle for Alabama. The two notable alt ball carriers in the red zone this year of note. That's all. I'm sure I'm missing some.
Why don't we leave it there for Ballerhood? I believe that covers pretty much everything that went down in week 12. Of course, you know the drill. We will be back on Tuesday. We will talk through whatever news breaks between now and then. I suppose we could have some. We will, of course, talk through the Verballer Top 12, reveal what that looks like in advance of the committee's rankings.
Yes.
Any lingering thoughts that we have after week 12, and any big previews that when we want to do as sort of an early look ahead for week 13. But coming down the stretch here, man, we've only got a couple weeks left here in the college football regular season, 2 in the regular season, conference championship week after that. And before you know it, we'll be talking about playoff matchups and bowl matchups.
This is true. Should also mention Ohio State beat UCLA. They're the number 1 team in the country. We didn't really.
I mentioned it. Yeah.
I know you mentioned it, but like they're just demolishing everybody no matter who they play. They don't have any scares.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
And there was no Carnell Tate this week, right?
No.
Must be nice.
In the meantime, please hit follow, please hit subscribe for anybody out there who is new to the show. Verballers.com is where you can go if you want to further support what Dan and I do. BYU is currently up 31 points on TCU. Seems like the Cougs are going to end up winning. We will talk more about their plight and the plight of other Big 12 and pretty much every college football team
Mountain
on
West teams. More Mountain West conversation early this week.
Our next episode. For that guy over there, Dan, for myself, Ty, as always, stay solid.
Peace.